What's going on, my people? I want to talk a little Siki, Battling Siki, that is one of the great fighters that the sport has seen, the first African world champion in boxing. He was Senegalese. I made a posting on Instagram. I'll post actually a picture here on YouTube as well in the community section, but basically first African world champion and the first African world light heavyweight champion. This happened in 1922. As mentioned, he was a Senegalese fighter. He was discovered at some point, and then people took him on under management, and he traveled to different places, different countries, etc. And he was a solid overall fighter, strong guy. And as mentioned, in 1922, he won the World Light Heavyweight Championship. And he did so by facing one of the great light heavyweight champions that the sport has seen, the big punching orchid man, Georges Carpentier, out of France. And this was somewhat of a, I guess you could say, controversial fight to a certain degree. And we actually have footage of it, thankfully. 1922, think about that. We have footage of such fight. But essentially, it was back and forth, a lot of dirtiness. And I would say that the bulk of the dirty work was happening by virtue of Georges Carpentier. He was known to be a fairly nice, I guess, jovial guy in some sense. But that being said, he certainly was not holding back as it pertained to fighting Siki. So there's a lot of hitting below the belt, a lot of holding, clinching, a mixture of just a bunch of craziness throughout the contest. It wasn't unlike Siki wasn't pushing back in a similar regard himself. But eventually, and I don't recall the exact round, the fight ended via knockout. And there was a sequence in which Battling Siki was almost tied up with Carpentier. Something happened as far as an exchange, and he caught him with a shot that sent him down. Now, there was controversy because it was at one point viewed as a knee, and still by some, it is viewed as having been a knee that actually took out Carpentier. And after he was counted out, this actually went to the commission. The commission had their thoughts in regards to the actual contest, and ultimately it ended up being ruled by, I forget exactly what the guy was, but I think he was over the commission there where it took place. It actually was ruled in Carpentier's favor, and or rather Battling Siki's favor, and went down as a win for him. Made him a major star in the sport of boxing. He was one of those guys who, man, he took advantage of that newfound fame and ultimately continued to travel, but it didn't last very long before he lost the title, and ultimately he ended up being killed in an unfortunate situation in which he was at a club, bar, or something of that nature, and guess there was commotion or something with another person. One thing led to another. He was leaving out and murdered, basically. And he was fairly young at the time. I want to say he was around 32 or something like that. Maybe even younger. But certainly unfortunate. So he still goes down in history, given the fact that he was the first African world champion, as mentioned. And it probably doesn't get mentioned as much these days, but a strong guy who could fight on the inside, to do a little work on the outside, was certainly known to be one of those guys who was sort of a puncher. And hey, his story remains. Maybe I'll do a video on him at some point to dive a bit deeper. But thank you all.